Yes, we're talking about that budget which is now being signed into law. You've heard it's a record. It's been signed in record time, and of course, it's going to start on the 1st of January 2020, something we haven't had in a while. But are we comfortable with the figures that have been signed, considering the fact that, more has been added to that particular budget, and some of the monies, a lot of the monies in that budget is going to be borrowed. We have with us this morning Obona Okuku, who is an investment expert. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, you have seen, well, first and foremost, let's ask what your impressions are now that the budget has been signed into law.
Yeah, I'm excited because, these are things that looked as if they can't happen in Nigeria. You can't have a budget that can, run from January to December. So finally it's happened because, someone decided to provide leadership, and then the National Assembly also were able to work, in harmony with the executive. And today we have a budget that is signed, so we're awaiting implementation. So for me, it's a good thing.
Working in harmony can also be described. Some people think that this was just rubber stamping, that there was really no rigorous examination of the 2020 budget.
No, of course, every MDA ministries, they all went to defend their budget. It was all in the public glare. Everybody saw that happen. So it would be unfair for anybody to say this is rubber stamp. There's no rubber stamp because, for example, you have some figures already added to the budget. So that means they had their own contributions into the budget too. I'm talking about the National Assembly. So there's really no rubber stamp here. It's just everybody coming together, agreeing on certain figures, and then let's move on.
Do you think it was part of the deal? Perhaps it was that was the give and take, the concessions that had to be made so that this will be signed or will be passed on time.
No, I won't see it from that point of view. I will see it from the from their own argument. The National Assembly. They say we are closer to our people. We know what they need. They need certain things that are not already in the budget. So it's better you take care of my people at the same time. So yes, there are other ways they can achieve that, but as it stands now, that is the only way that exists for that negotiation to happen. So it's not going to be looked as if these monies are going to anybody's pocket. These are still projects that will still be domiciled in localities within Nigeria, within the same geography we're talking about. So I don't think is anybody negotiating to get for personal gains.
What are the highlights of this budget for you? Now that we now have a January to December cycle set in place, first, I know I just asked you about highlights, but quickly, would you kindly respond to what will happen to this 2019 budget, which was signed almost mid this year and didn't start on time? Do you think it's going to be factored into, or has it been factored into the budget which has been signed?
No, some of the projects are already in this new budget that have been signed. Yeah, so, but when it comes to recurrence, recurrence will definitely end as soon as the new budget starts to count. Yeah, so that's exactly what's going to happen.
Okay. So what are the highlights for you? What do you think that by the end of 2020, the people of Nigeria should be able to say, yes, indeed, this was a good budget?
Yeah, first, before answering that question, I think we need to get everybody to understand what this is all about, because it would be wrong for us to assume that a lot of people even understand what this is all about. It's a financial document that speaks about expected revenue and then how much you are going to expend within a fiscal year, and as proposed by government. Now, if you have that at the back of your mind, knowing that it has 4 stages, which will be the drafting, which is what has happened, and then again the legislative approval, which also has happened, and then the executive approving it, then the next stage, which is implementation, and then monitoring and evaluation. Now, this is where we need to watch, and if you notice my definition, I said expected revenue. So whatever it is that's going to happen will be basically bordered on how much we're going to be earning as the revenue that accrues to our nation. That is when we'll now begin to allocate funds to strategic projects within the same budget. Yes, but if you don't have a shortfall and you have excess, why not? You can cover everything in the budget, but it's still it's a plan. You're going to work towards it. You have to actually be tactful in trying to implement or make sure that you actualize whatever it is that the plans that you have within the budget. So for me, it's the highlight is, yes, first things first, we have a predictable budget that everybody will be happy about. Then the private sector, the private sector always have this issue not knowing the direction of the government. So now they have a direction. They know where government spending will be headed at. You now know the kind of training that the workforce will be getting within the system. So it makes life a lot easier for them as the private sector. It makes life easier for you that want to invest. You now know which areas to put in your money, and then so things are just a bit more predictable. And you know how investors think, seeing things from their own prism, they always want to know the direction of government so that they will know exactly where to key in from.
What direction can we get from this particular budget?
It's clear we want to invest more in the private in infrastructure, which will help the private sector in in doing their business. There'll be a lot of investment towards the agri sector. And then again, another very important thing I saw is in education. A lot has to happen in education, which that was also factored in the budget. So basically, in all areas of the economy, the budget will touch all areas. Yes, we have, with the size of our economy, we need to invest more. We will need to have more funds, pushed into critical infrastructure because, if we're talking about diversifying the economy, there will be need for us to invest a bit more on those infrastructure. Then again, going further, I think there's still need for those at the subnationals to also key in. There should be a holistic plan on direction, investment direction, so that as the federal government is expending monies, the state government will also follow suit, expend monies in the same direction, so that the impact will be felt more by the people.
A financial bill was, of course, signed, following the presentation of this budget. The financial bill was presented as well, which was supposed to be how this budget was going to be funded. And part of what we saw was huge reforms on taxes.
Yeah.
One of the things that caused some protest was VAT. However, let's look at the funding for this particular budget. We also know that I think slightly the members of the National Assembly increased the benchmark price for crude.
Yeah.
Was that a wise decision from your own analysis?
Yeah, for me, if you look at it, it's just it's something that ought to have happened because they are looking at it from their own. They probably have sat down with a lot of consultants who will look at it and say, okay, you can actually take that leap. Yes, it won't.
You think the government was too conservative when it presented the figures that it presented?
Yeah, of course. It's better because if you look at it from last year's budget, we projected, $60. And then at the end of the day, we never, the crude oil price never, never got to that level. So it's better for you to be a bit more conservative when you're making, projections, so that whatever happens, you are still very comfortable in trying to plan and then deliver on your promises to the people.
And that's why people will question whether it was wise for members of the National Assembly to have increased it, since the government was trying to be conservative.
Yeah, I followed that argument, but whether we like it or not, it's something they have also looked at, because if you say, if we insist on what the executive wanted to achieve, of course, everybody, will be going back and forth, arguing this, because when it comes to, if you put maybe 10 economists in a room, we probably will have different views on the same issues. So it's okay, it's understandable if that happens. Yeah.
Just quickly, I mean, this budget is supposed to be to sustain growth and also create jobs. And we know that in the last couple of weeks, there's been some controversy over unemployment figures, which I think people are waiting for to be released by the National Bureau of Statistics. People want to know just how we fared, this year with trying to create jobs for our teeming young population. From what you have seen in this budget, and for the figures that have been earmarked for the different sectors, from education is getting about 48 billion, health about 46 billion, works in housing 262 billion, power 127 billion, transportation 123 billion. Universal basic education has another heading, it's 112 billion. Do you think that we have put our money where our mouth is, where job creation is concerned?
Yeah, like I said earlier, you can only do as much as, you have the available funds to do in respect to boost, being able to boost the economy. Mm-hmm. Putting your money in infrastructure is very key because you can't industrialize without having your infrastructure work. Logistics, you have to do roads. I said this on another platform some few days ago. I think we just started realizing how small we are as a people when it comes to our financial strength. And then the present leadership of our country is actually making everybody realize that we have to be prudent when it comes to our finances, how we deploy funds. Now, if you don't put monies on roads, it's sometimes it hurts when you hear that they're still doing Lagos-Ibadan Express Road. Since 1999, I've been hearing that particular road. Is it that it's so difficult for the road to be built? But now you can see there's someone who's providing leadership who wants these things to happen, because you cannot diversify without having these things work. You can't diversify without having, power sector work. So these are the things. And then when it comes to education, it's very key. Education is key in the sense that, you see the universal basic education having a different subheading, because it's a statutory transfer. It's something that must leave the budget, from the entire budget as soon as you do that, because it's monies that will, you put aside so that the state government also contribute, so that, they work together to implement some of those projects to make sure that we have our basic education to work in Nigeria. Then again, when it comes to education, again, there's this great factor everybody must see.
The question is whether or not we are putting our money where our mouth is, where job creation. How do you see this going to affect job creation? That's the question I was asking. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. If you do infrastructure, more investment will come into your country, and that's how jobs are created. Investors run after a few things, and one of such things is the kind of workforce you have. And it's your education that will give you that kind of workforce that you... And when we're talking about education, we're talking about two kinds of education here, formal and informal education, okay? Formal education, what you get is certificate, and what you get from informal education is results. So if we work together, from that basic level where you start learning how to understand basic things, being able to critically think, analyze issues, and then bring out results. So from education, that's when you get what you need to also, become productive.
So how big a dent do you think this will make on the unemployment figures? A very big dent or a small dent?
No, it will make significant. It will be significant. Okay. Let me use the word significant.
Significant is very relative, I guess. But, we have to thank you for coming on Sunrise City this morning. Ogbonna Okoko is an investment expert, and we've been talking about the 2020 budget, which has just been signed into law. Well, I flip this now to Ayo, who is in Lagos, and I believe has another guest. Ayo.